Hello and welcome to the Meditative Shift, where transformation begins with a mindset reset. I'm Susan Taylor, and today we're going to dive into the habit that so many of us struggle with, negative self-talk. You know, those little or sometimes loud voices in our heads that criticize, doubt, or even diminish us. But there's good news, and we can retrain our mind to be our biggest supporter instead of our worst critic. Recently, a listener reached out and shared this with me. She said, I catch myself falling into a pattern of feeling fatigued and then hearing my inner voice supporting those feelings by commenting like, you are lazy, why don't you have enthusiasm for life, and the things about myself that really don't seem to be inspiring. And you know, I've been watching the sequence over and over, and I thought to reach out to you. And she asked me, how can I break this habit? Well, if you've ever had that experience, you're really not alone. Science tells us that the way we talk to ourselves isn't just about words, it's actually shaping our neural pathways in our brain. What that means is, the more we repeat these negative thoughts, the stronger those patterns will become. But here's the shift. Just like we can train a muscle, we can actually train our mind to rewire our brains with a new narrative. So you may ask why we fall into this negative self-talk. Well, negative self-talk is something we all experience at some point in our lives. You know, it might sound like a critical voice telling us we're not good enough, or a fearful thought predicting the worst, or a perfectionist voice insisting that we can't afford to fail. At first glance, it may seem like the voice is just, being mean to us. But here's something to consider. Negative self-talk often starts as a misguided attempt to keep us safe. It's our ego's way of trying to protect us from failure, rejection, or even disappointment. For example, the critic in us believes that pointing out our flaws will push us to improve. Or the victim in us may try to shield us, let's say, from further being hurt by convincing us that things are out of our control. Or the perfectionist may be speaking, and that thinks, well, we're being protected from failure by insisting that we do everything flawlessly. Or maybe the catastrophizer's talking, and they want you to be prepared for the worst, so you're not caught off guard. But here's the problem. What starts as a protection turns into a limitation. Instead of keeping us safe, these voices keep us stuck, too afraid to take action, embrace opportunities, and actually believe in ourselves. So let's take a closer look at these four main types of negative self-talk. The critic, I'm not good enough, right? The critic is that inner voice that constantly finds faults and magnifies weaknesses. It tells you that no matter what you do, it's not enough. And this voice might sound like, well, you're not smart enough for this, or you don't deserve to be here, or why even try? You may just fail. It thrives on comparison and perfectionism, making you believe that unless you meet impossible standards, you don't measure up. Well, how do you shift it? When you hear the critic, challenge it. Ask yourself, would I say that to a friend? If not, why say it to yourself? Let's move on to the victim. The victim says, the victim voice I'm talking about here, things never work out for me. And the victim voice makes you feel powerless, as if life is just happening to you. It convinces you that no matter what you do, you're doomed to fail or suffer. And you might hear it saying, nothing ever goes my way. Or why does this always happen to me? Or maybe I'm just not lucky. And this type of self-talk keeps you stuck in a loop of helplessness and frustration. But the truth is, we always have some power over reactions, choices, and our mindset. So how do we shift it? We start by identifying one small thing you can control today. Even shifting your mindset from why me to what can I learn from this is a powerful step. The third voice that may be speaking at times is the perfectionist. If I don't get it right, I've failed. And the perfectionist believes that anything less than perfect is unacceptable. It puts extreme pressure on you to perform flawlessly, and then when you inevitably fall short, it leads to shame and self-blame. So you might hear your voice saying, I can't mess this up, or I'll look stupid, or if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing, or I should be able to handle everything. Perfectionism can create anxiety, procrastination, and burnout. Anybody ever feel that? Because the fear of failure becomes so overwhelming that it stops you from even trying. So how do we shift this? Remind yourself that progress is more important than perfection. Ask yourself, what would happen if I allowed myself to do this imperfectly? And actually, growth comes from this action, not from getting everything right the first time. And the last voice we might hear is the catastrophizer. If this goes wrong, everything will fall apart. The catastrophizer lives in the worst case scenario. It assumes that one mistake, one setback, or one wrong move will lead to a disaster. So you might hear the voice saying, if I mess up this presentation, my whole career is over. Or what if they reject me? I'll never recover. Or if this doesn't work out, I'll never get another chance. Now this kind of self-talk is rooted in anxiety and fear. And it actually amplifies uncertainty and makes the future seem scarier than it actually is. So how do we shift this? Well, ask yourself, what's the most likely outcome? Often reality isn't an extreme, as our mind makes it seem like it is, right? So practice grounding techniques like deep breathing to bring yourself back to the present moment is essential. So how can you recognize which one of these voices shows up at all if it shows up in your life? Well, maybe you struggle with one or more than others, or maybe different ones show up in different situations, or maybe none of these apply to you at all. The key here is awareness. Once you see these patterns, you can start to break free from them. So take a moment to ask yourself, which of these voices do I hear the most, if at all? And how has it shaped my actions or beliefs? Let's now move to the science of self-talk. Self-talk isn't just about words, it's about chemistry. The way we talk to ourselves has a direct impact on our emotions, stress levels, and even physical health. Research from the National Institutes of Health shows that positive self-talk can actually lower our cortisol levels. That's the stress hormone. And that means the way you speak to yourself doesn't just influence your mood, it literally changes your brain chemistry. So what happens when negative self-talk takes over? Well, when you engage in harsh, critical thoughts, your amygdala, that's part of your brain responsible for processing emotions, interprets it as a threat. It triggers a stress response, flooding your system with adrenaline and cortisol, and this puts your body into a fight or flight state, making it much harder to think clearly and make good decisions or even feel at peace. It's as if your brain believes your own words and reacts accordingly. If you tell yourself, I'm not good enough, or this is going to be a disaster, your nervous system responds as if that's really happening and keeps you stuck in the stress mode. But the good news here is you can shift this response when you practice self-compassion and encourage self-talk that's positive, because then your brain will release oxytocin, and that's often called the feel-good hormone. Oxytocin, you see, promotes feelings of safety, trust, connection, and it helps you feel more calm, grounded, and capable. This isn't just about thinking happy thoughts here. It's about training your mind to support you rather than work against you. And the more you practice this, the stronger those neural pathways do become. Now that we understand why negative self-talk happens and how it affects the brain, the next step is learning how to break free from it. But here's the thing. Fighting against negative thoughts doesn't actually work. If you've even tried to silence that critical inner voice by force, you know that sometimes that voice will just get louder. In fact, it enhances it. So instead of battling your thoughts, try something different. Step back, observe, and ask yourself, who's speaking? Who's speaking now? Is it you or your monkey mind? Many wisdom traditions describe the monkey mind, that restless, chattery voice that jumps from thought to thought, constantly analyzing, judging, and predicting. Well, they recognize this, and they recognize this as a monkey, the monkey mind that jumps around. It tells stories about who we are, what we're capable of, and what might go wrong. But here's the truth. Just because your mind is talking doesn't mean it's telling the truth. So the next time your inner critic speaks up, try this. Pause and observe. Instead of immediately believing the thought, notice it. Here's the voice again. Detach from it. Ask yourself, is this really me, or is it old conditioning? And shift the narrative. Instead of arguing with the thought, try replacing it with a more neutral or supportive perspective. For example, if you catch yourself thinking, I'm not good enough, don't force yourself to think I'm amazing if that doesn't feel true. Instead, try, I'm learning and growing, or this thought isn't the truth, it's just a habit, or I don't have to believe everything my mind says. Or sometimes I use, not today. I got that from my nephew when he was very, very little, when he didn't want to do something. Not today. And it makes it fun. Because this isn't about forcing positivity. It's about loosening the grip of negative self-talk by recognizing it for what it is. Just a thought. So how do we get better at this? By practicing stillness. When we slow down, whether through meditation, diaphragmatic breathing, deep breathing, some people say, or simply sitting in a quiet awareness, we start to see our thoughts come and go like clouds drifting across the sky. We realize that we're not our thoughts. We're the space in which they arise. So in meditation, we learn this firsthand. Thoughts appear, thoughts disappear. We don't have to chase them, and we don't have to hold on to them. We simply watch. And in that watching, something powerful happens. We start to gain freedom from the voice in our head. So our final takeaway here is you are not your thoughts. You're not the voice in your mind. You're the one listening to it. And that means you have the power to choose which thoughts to engage with and which ones to let pass by. So today, give yourself that moment of stillness, and the next time any negativity arises, don't fight it. Just watch it. See it for what it is, and then choose a thought that moves you towards growth rather than keeping you stuck. In the next episode, we'll explore rebuilding connection from the Tower of Babel to social media and creating a mindset that truly supports you. Until then, always be kind to yourself, because the way you speak to yourself shapes everything. And if you found today's episode resonating with you, I'd love you to take a moment to subscribe. Share this episode with a friend who needs it, and leave a review. It really helps more than you know. And if you are looking for a space to just slow down and reconnect, join me for our bi-monthly meditation class. It's a chance to reset, breathe, and shift your energy into real time. And you could sign up at the website courses.susantaylor.org. This episode, The Meditative Shift, is sponsored by Women in the Round, which is a wellness collective dedicated to supporting women through life's transitions with strength and purpose. Always remember, change is constant, and how you navigate it is the shift. So until next time, honor your body, steady your mind, and trust the journey.